Prestige Wrestling Roseland XII started strong and ended strong. But the middle of this show was a disaster that made the entire experience seem frustrating to watch at times. When you have 3 consecutive matches that range us from 1.5 to 1 3/4 stars, you pretty much kill all momentum no matter what happens around them. This was a show that had the pieces to be good, but collapsed under the weight of its bad matches. Cody Chhun vs. Travis Williams opened up the show, and it was exactly what you expect when you put 2 solid workers in the ring. Williams, he won with the Death Valley Driver, and I thought they had a pretty good structure here with some balanced pacing, and they built to the near falls the right way. These guys here are professionals who understand the fundamentals, and that's what they delivered here. Nothing was really much wrong with this. The execution was fine. The layout made sense, and they did their jobs, but it never elevated past that competent level. I thought this was a good opener that set a professional tone at just 3.5 stars. Johnnie Robbie vs. Trish Adora for the West Coast Pro Women's title exceeded expectations for me. Now lately, they've been looking pretty average, and I thought this was the best that they looked in a while here. Now Robbie, she retained with double knees, pretty much after they controlled the pace, and they worked a technical style for the most part here. I thought both adapted well to each other and told a solid story with some good near falls. They pretty much looked good together for the time that they had. And when you have 2 people who haven't been performing at their best suddenly click at times, you get a pleasant surprise like this at just 2 3/4 stars. Then the show falls apart. Matt Brannigan versus Danhausen was your typical Danhausen comedy stuff. And this time, it didn't really connect for me. Brannigan, he won with a choke slam after they did the typical antics here. And the crowd did enjoy this for what they were doing, but from a match quality standpoint, there was really nothing there. Both guys worked fine, but it never showed any signs of becoming something more than just filler here. Now sometimes the comedy gimmicks work, and sometimes it's just there just to get a reaction from the live audience. This was the latter here. It never really built to anything, never had any substance. And while the people in the building were entertained, the match itself was just a nothing match at 1.5 star. Immediately after that, Midnight Heat versus the Good Brothers for the Prestige Tag Team titles was even worse for me. Midnight Heat retained with a chain after going through the motions, and with no escalation, this was just a bunch of nothing at all. The structure was blah. The teams didn't really work together in a way that was enticing or interesting, and there was really no real substance to this. Now the crowd, they gave Midnight Heat actual heat, but that's routine for them at this point. So it didn't really mean anything special or anything they did that was just oozing of, oh my goodness. The finish was lame to me, especially after how lifeless the entire match was. Now when you have a tag team title match that never builds or never escalates, and the teams are just out there doing moves without purpose, you end up with this at just 1.5 star. Then the 8-man tag made it 3 bad matches in a row. Drexel, Jaden, and the Flaming Aces versus Casey Ferreira, Cole Rivera, Elliot Tyler, and Sid Salem. And I thought this was a pretty disappointing match because it never had the time to develop here. Ferreira and company, they won with a frog splash, pretty much after they did some spots and also had some brawling, but it needed more time to sink in and escalate. When you have 8 guys, you need time for things to build so the chaos means something. To me, this didn't get that. I thought it felt rushed and it never developed properly. The pieces were there, but without time to let it escalate and develop, it was just guys doing moves until someone hits a finish at just 1 3/4 stars. 3 consecutive bad matches killed this show dead. It's hard to recover from that no matter what happens next. Shayna Baszler versus Dani Luna tried to save things, and I thought this was a really good match where both women worked very well together here. Baszler, she won with the clutch after they worked a good structure and went back and forth properly here. I thought both adapted to what they needed to do throughout this match. And when you put 2 professionals in the ring who understand how to work each other and build a match, they most likely deliver here. The back and forth made sense for what they were building to, and both knew what the other needed here. This was one of those matches where anything clicked because both of them are on the same page and working at a high level at 3.5 stars. But then the Tag Team Turmoil for the #1 contendership with 9 teams dragged this show back down. The Hammer Brothers, they won with a small package after a match that dragged at parts, and it got boring at points. With 9 teams, you need a tight layout and eliminations that mean something. But this was just okay at managing that. I thought it dragged, and you just wanted stuff to move along as I'm watching this. The format didn't do anything special here. And I thought the Hammerbirds were just meh throughout this, and when they won it, it didn't feel like a payoff was worth the time invested in. I give this one 2 3/4 stars. Nicole Matthews versus Amira for the DPW Women's World Title I thought was really good with solid structure and pacing. Matthews, she retained with the label lock after a good back and forth that built properly throughout. I thought both women worked good in their roles here, and when you give two people time and they understand how the structure and pace is correctly, you get something like this. Matthews worked good as champion here, and Amira, she worked good opposite of her, and they used the time to build to the near falls and the finish in a way that made sense. I give this one 3.5 stars. Judas Icarus versus Kevin Blackwood for the Prestige title closed the show, and I thought this was the best match on the card. Blackwood, he won the title with a double foot stomp, and people wanted Icarus to really retain here, so the surprise of Blackwood winning added something here. Both guys worked very well together and delivered on the match quality for the most part. The back and forth I thought was good, the structure I thought was there, and the pacing worked for the most part. But the timing felt rushed at points, and they didn't slow down enough to let things breathe here. It seemed like they were rushing through sections where they should have just taken a beat and let the match sink in at times. When you're working at this level with the crowd invested, you need those moments where you let it breathe sometimes. They didn't always do that here, and that's what kept it from going higher at just 3 3/4 stars. This show had 4 matches at 3.5 stars or better, but 3 consecutive terrible matches in the middle destroyed all momentum and made the experience just a little bit frustrating. I thought the bad stretch here was too much to overcome, especially when certain matches could have been better at the level of just being good. I give this a 7.0 out of 10.